please welcome Mstyslav Chernov and Lucia Schmid.
Yes, and I should add, a great admirer of your work, Mstyslav. I'm having a hard time, Mstyslav Chernov, but I'm getting there.
You're doing good, yeah.
Sorry. So let me just introduce you really quickly to our audience. Mstyslav Chernov, he grew up in eastern Ukraine, only 30 kilometers away from the Russian border, a town that was captivated or occupied by the Russian after the first full-scale invasion, is now liberated again, for the time being and hopefully for the rest of its existence. And Mstyslav Chernov, he is now a freelance filmmaker. Before he had a full-time job assignment with Associated Press, AP, an American news agency, as a, I think, reporter, photographer, photojournalist. And his work has been published in all the major news outlets, such as New York Times, Washington Post, The Independent, Telegraph, Le Monde, the Zeit. I could go on forever. He's also been, he is the author of the book Time of Dreams. He's, of course, the filmmaker. His first film, 20 Days in Mariupol, whom many of you might have seen. If not, go and watch it. Has won, as you probably know, amongst many other prizes, the Oscar for Best Documentary and the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service. And apparently, the Gezi Park protests in summer of 2013 changed your career towards journalism. We will get into that later. You can correct me if it's wrong. But I wanted to ask you, before we start with anything else, how did you survive to make your new film, 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, physically, but most of all, mentally?
Hello, sorry for a slight delay. I've been running as fast as I can. And this is an honor for me too. Okay, that was a strange time. Actually, this is a strange time too. Like, I'm shooting the new film now, and I'll get to that in a minute. But at the time, the summer 2023, when we started shooting 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, it was the time when we were presenting and screening 20 Days in Mariupol for the wider audiences for the first time. It has premiered earlier that year, but its main theatrical premiere was happening in the summer. And I remember even our PR guys were telling me, "Oh, Mstyslav, you know, don't expect many people to come to cinemas. It's a difficult film, but also there is a Barbie on Oppenheimer happening at the same time, same weekend opening." And it was so strange to see 20 Days in Mariupol, Barbie and Oppenheimer all together. But it was great. A lot of people came, and it was an event. It was a time when people were really interested in cinema that summer. And red carpets have started, cocktail parties where you need to talk to people, to explain the film, to give its context. Meetings with the audience started, of course, and that has such a strange juxtaposition, such a strange contrast to everything that was happening at home. At home, the front line was burning. The entire front line in Ukraine have been on fire from the counteroffensive that was prepared for months and months and months, and it was largely overhyped maybe by the international media, and that was the most important story for me in the world at that moment. It definitely was the most important story for Ukrainians at that moment. It felt like if I had a first film, a story of 20 Days in Mariupol about invaders destroying our lives, destroying the city of Mariupol as a symbol of other cities that have been destroyed. Now I could make a film that would tell a story of an opposite movement, of the same civilians taking arms and moving in an opposite direction, liberating some of this land, if not all. So I would fly back to Poland, I would cross the border, take a train, take a car, get to the trench, start filming for a week or two, and then jump in a car, get on a train, cross the border, fly back to Paris, Berlin, LA, New York.
Being celebrated for 20 days.
These two worlds, just these two worlds colliding, it was so difficult to adjust. I've been through that before. You know, since 2014, I've been through several different wars. And every time you come back home, and that's really weird, because at home there is no war. Well, there was actually, but here there wasn't. And it takes always a while to, I'm sure you know that too, it takes a while to adjust. But then when you work in the news, you sort of shoot or write and let it go. But when you're making a film, it stays with you. And so that feeling, I realized that I need somehow to get that dissonance in the film. I wish the audience would feel the same way.
This is exactly the moment where I already lose all of my concept, because then I have to make a big step. But I think it's crazy. You're telling me that you literally went from the ditches we see in the forest strip, these 2,000 meters from Andriivka, you're going back to the media world, you're promoting your film, you're being celebrated. I mean, how do you cope with that in the first place?
I remember I was flying, one of the stories, fly back to LA and go to it was a BAFTA tea party. Slightly later, it was BAFTA tea party, and there were all these stars from The Bear and other amazing films and TV series at that moment at the red carpet. And I'm with my military jacket. Not military, but sort of
Zelensky feeling. Yeah.
It's just a convenient cloth that you can wear both on the front line and on the road. So I'm there and somebody asks me, "Are you someone's security guard?" So I'm like, "No, I'm a film director." But that again, that shows you how strange it is.
But maybe this gives me the idea, this sort of reflects in your film, because I remember seeing within 2,000 meters to Andriivka, I will just call it 2,000 meters because it's just too long of a title to mention it 1,000 times. But it's not out of disrespect.
You can say Andriivka, you can say
okay.
2K.
But when you did that, I think there's this marvelous, or this very, it's disturbing. We can see the soldiers fighting in that strip. We see this terrible life in the ditches and this fight. And then on the montage, on the sound, we have the reports from various media outlets, such as from probably UK, most of US, and they're commenting the counter-offensive. And they're sort of almost in a reproachful way they would go, but you know, the advance is not that big. And we just literally saw the people dying for 300 meters progress. And this felt very cynical. And of course, I mean, you did it for a purpose, but I was wondering, is this also a reaction to your experience as a filmmaker, as a journalist? You have to fight for your stories to be produced. You have to fight to be either as a photographer on the first page or as a filmmaker to finance your film. And you have well, you get what I want to say. So how do you feel about this? I was wondering, like, did you start to hate Western media for this very complicated situation you're in?
I remember being angry, but then again, isn't like that's what you want to do. You want to. Every choice in a film, every shot, every sound is a deliberate choice that is made on the montage, and of course, it's made to reflect not only my feelings but also the feelings of the protagonists of the film. So in the very beginning, me and Michel Meissner, an amazing editor behind 20 Days in Mariupol and 2,000 meters, we picked a guiding light for us, and that guiding light would be maximum realism. Mm-hmm. So everything is served it serves the purpose of placing the audience inside the soldier's experience. Hence literary cameras that show you what the soldier sees, right? You live in the body of a soldier for 30% of a film. And so the way they experience, it could be a montage of pictures of news, but that's not how they experience it. When you are stuck in a trench, when you don't get out from there, as I did, you hear this radio passing by or occasional TikTok when you have a connection. So that's how they experience it too. It's not only how I experience it. And I remember asking Fedya, that's not in our film, we did not include that, because we thought we could say that even without speaking about it. And since you mentioned it, that means that job is done. So we did not need to use that part of my conversation with Fedya, but I asked him, hey, what do you feel about experts saying that you're moving too slow? And by that time, it took them almost 3 months to move 2,000 meters. He says, well, let these experts to come to this forest and see how how fast they move. And he had this irony, but also a little bit of anger.
Of course,
So
how can there not be anger?
I wanted that feeling to be on the screen.
And you were just saying, I think you said it was 35 or somewhat 30% of that POVs. I don't know if all of you have seen the film, I guess, but in case of not, we do have a lot of POV footage from the helmet cameras of the soldiers. And also we have drone shots from above, I think it's sort of like the back office. It's probably a very wrong military term, but what's the term?
So for those, I can explain. For those who haven't seen the film, the entire film is happening inside this little forest squeezed between two minefields, and that it's like this theater wide and 2,000 meters long, and the entire film is happening inside that forest over 3 months. Well, there are two parallel storylines. One is 1 day, one is 3 months, sort of a Dunkirk thing happening there. And we see soldiers moving through that forest, and in one of the storylines I accompany them to, a man who's carrying the flag. So we end up with multiple visual mediums. We end up with around 100 hours of footage from the GoPro cameras, from the helmet cameras that were filmed by the brigade even before we came in for the battle analysis purposes, and that we went through over and over, searching for the right moments to show. Then we've added some, of course. And so we end up with like 100 hours of those, and then plus lots, 20 hours maybe of the drone footage. But that matches what we see on the ground with
that's
the body
incredible.
cam,
I mean, we can
right?
see the drone footage.
At the same time, we would shoot in a command center, so you don't see only what's happening on the ground, not only what you see in the drones, but what happens at the same time inside a command center where they see everything and give commands to the battlefield. Then you have medics. We have a camera with medics who receive the wounded that are coming from this forest during the battle. So we don't drop that immediately on the audience. We build up to that visual language. We start with one camera at the very beginning of the film, and then we slowly introduce more and more and more perspectives. So by the middle of the film, by the battle of 600 meters, you have literally 7 cameras working all at the same time, right? And then you see the battle from 2 cameras on the battlefield, one of them 360 that you can reframe, 2 drones, the officers in the headquarters giving the commands, FPV drones, medics, and all that is edited into one comprehensive scene. If I was making a scripted film, I would not be able to do that.
I was going to go there.
It's amazing.
Because it's it's an amazing to watch it, and you're in this movie and you're like, it's really taking you over, and you literally feel like you're there with the people. Of course you don't feel because you sit in a cinema chair, but I was wondering, I also read in an article it has this sort almost an approach or an aesthetics of video games and stuff. And I guess you've heard that before. And I was on, or just as like a feature film, like it's been shot from so many angles. And I was wondering, in the editing, is this something you work with, or you wanted to work against it? Were you doing deliberately because you really wanted to place the audience in that very situation, even though knowing we will never know what it feels like? Or how did you, what were your ideas about using the specific techniques?
So there are two questions in one here.
Yeah.
One question is about
I
the
always
video.
do that.
Thank you. Two questions. So the first one is about the games, and the games. The games thing is very dangerous, and it's not. It's something that we'll constantly have to be aware of, because the audience is smart, and the audience always has this familiarity with the medium, especially the medium of the helmet cameras. But we usually experience it through the social media. We see it small on our small screens. We scroll through them, and that's when they look like a video game. I think the comparison with the video game is coming more from our usual experience. That is how we usually experience those shots. And we keep seeing these pilots of drones with joysticks that are just flying the drone to kill. So it is, and then there's boys when they are in. There's just a bunch of boys that are sitting in that headquarters and they're watching the battle unfolding. But then if you sort of just step back for a second, and you watch them, they're still boys, like watching a soccer match. If it wasn't that serious, it would be that, So that's dangerous. You don't want the audience come to the film and experience it as a game, because realism,
no, of course not.
Realism was the guiding light. And so we had to fight it. And you fight it with a lot of different tools. And one of these tools is faces. So when you play a video game, you don't really see the face of your character. You experience it from their perspective. And so we were looking, while editing, particularly for moments when soldiers take off the helmets and the cameras and turn it on themselves. That makes it very human, and it makes you connect to someone.
And you give them names, and you give them futures or futures that end bad. Yeah.
They call signs. So then, of course, between those scenes, seen from perspective of the soldier, you have quite calm and quiet conversations with soldiers too. So it's not constant drive and shooting. There's a moment of human connection, which brings you to that connection to people, and then you see them fighting. Then it stops being a game. Your second question is the cinematic quality of the film. I think was, again, it's like a balance. It's a dance between being extremely realistic and raw in your visual language, but also trying to make a film that would feel like a film. You see, the problem, it's not a problem, but I think it is something that I personally don't like about classic documentary genre, that it constantly acknowledges itself as being a film. When I watch Saving Private Ryan, Thin Red Line, Apocalypse Now, those Children of Men, those war films that I grew up with, that are my references to how I talk about war, when you watch them, you don't remember where you are, what you are, who you are. You're there. You're in the story. Your brain doesn't really care it's a fiction or not. It's in the story. But when you're watching a classic documentary, and it's really good for certain kinds of films, for certain kinds of stories, but I don't think it works for the war, for stories about war. When you see people sitting there and talking to the camera, that's when the medium acknowledges itself, and you as an audience keep being reminded, okay, well, you're watching a film, that's a distance between you and what's happening. So what we try to do is we try to close that distance, right? There are no sit-down interviews. There are no such things as, classic archival footage.
That's, I guess, why you also decided you only have the media coverage on an audio level, but you never wanted to leave the situation.
You just experience the story as it's unfolding, and that's how I want the story to be told. But at the same time, you do need to make sure that it's just not a mess. So you have to use the classic tools of storytelling. You have to build your story, or allow your story to take shape of a classic 3-act structure, use the dramatic arc, which was basically provided to us by reality. We're very lucky that there is a protagonist, that there is a goal.
There's a goal,
a goal, there's a path to that goal, and there are difficulties on the way.
Yeah, let me jump straight to that goal, because I think, well, the goal obviously is at the end to raise that flag of the Ukraine in the liberated village of Andriivka. Of course, it's a very iconic scene. I mean, there's 1,000 pictures in my head immediately popping up, of a liberated thing, especially, you know what I'm talking about. And this is the goal of the film. And finally, after this 3 months of terrible fighting, of people dying, of just the terror of war, we finally reach Andriivka, and the only sign of hope is actually the cat. And then Fedjev goes there.
We're spoiling everything for those who haven't seen the film.
Sorry, but I guess most of them have, I hope. But well, you know what I refer to, this very act of the flag being, there's something so sad about it. It's almost cynic, because the village is destroyed. Even you yourself say you don't believe you don't share the belief on Fedjev, the soldier of the 3rd Battalion who led.
I say I want to share his belief. That's what
okay. I'm glad you corrected, but you don't really, because it's a nightmare that won't stop. And to me, it felt like, we go there, and this strip of land is freed, and now we know. You even tell us now it's not free anymore. The Russian has reconquered it, and how was the reaction to that in the Ukraine, or what was your purpose? Because it seems at this moment almost futile. But of course it's not futile, because you have to defend, it's a dilemma, you have to defend that country. But still it is terrible. So how was the reaction in the Ukraine to that film, and what was your purpose? Did you want to send a message to the government or to the military saying, hey, rethink your strategy, or what is your position?
No, you don't want to message anyone with a film. That is direct way to disappointment. Any imperative that you want to put there, the moral imperative is that's futile. But then you perfectly formed the paradox. I think every good film has to have a paradox in it, and then you just yourself formed that paradox in words. That the war is futile in its core and its nature, but at the same time there is no other way for those men to defend their land, to defend their home. The freak, one of the soldiers with the call sign Freak, which we meet on the way, he says he's from Bernahrad, and the front line is right 2 kilometers from his city right now. And all of this, when you see these men, you know why they're there. They're all volunteers. They came there to defend their home from the invasion. Very simple. So I would love that simplicity to come through. But again, yes, the paradox is at its core. And think about this. It was a quite difficult task when we embarked on this journey. A film about civilians is in a many way easier to make as 20 Days in Mariupol, because it's morally very straightforward.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you make a film about war, you do want to make the anti-war film. You do. And it's famously said that you can't make anti-war film. Any film about war is still pro-war. So I have this dilemma when we start. How do you make a film that acknowledges heroism, that acknowledges the courage, the sacrifice of these men and the cause they're fighting for, but at the same time do not glorify war? How do you do that? So, and the answer to that is that the paradox. You have to find that paradox. And again, in documentary, you just follow the story. It's not like you can control anything. And it was just luck. But again, I think that paradox lies in, it's there. It's there in the front line. It's there with those soldiers. You just have to search and find people who will represent it. This irrational optimism that is that you see in these men that are going forward regardless of the losses, because this is the only way. Otherwise, my city would be occupied. Otherwise, their cities would be occupied. So, yeah, that's the most difficult part of this storytelling. The storytelling about war. How do you make an anti-war film but still show these people as heroes? They are heroes for me, and they're heroes for everyone. When Ukrainians come out of the cinema, they are like, who do I help? Like, where's that platoon? Let me give them money. Let me help them. So Ukrainians are energized by seeing this film. The soldiers accept the hardships and accept the truth because they want people to know how hard it is to be there. And just some of the European audiences sometimes I do get this question, well, this is all pointless, the war is pointless. I'm like, yes, the war is pointless. And still you have to defend your home. Yeah. And if that comes through, that's good.
That was the very thought. Well, yes, please. Because when I was watching the film, one of the 1,000 thoughts that crossed my mind was actually also, obviously this is a very strong statement, your whole film, for the battle the Ukrainian people fight. And then I heard voices of people in now the ongoing German discussion said we have to stop this war only in
but yes,
we all agree on that. Yes, but the way the question is how, and that it might fuel or it might give fuel to those people who say, but that means we only can do it in diplomatic ways, and we have to stop the fighting right now. Which would always.
But isn't Ukrainians are for almost a year now are saying, please just stop it diplomatically? That's exactly what Ukrainian diplomats and politicians and civilians are saying all the time. Let's stop the war. Let's stop it diplomatically. Just stop the fighting.
Yeah.
Yes.
But still, you would need the weapons. But anyway, as long as it doesn't stop. But let's just move on, because I was also thinking one idea. And I don't know if I read something into it that wasn't there, because the question of, in Germany now we discuss compulsory military service. And I think it is now the law for young men, they have to stay, it's better you explain it. But I was wondering, what is the situation within, as a mother, you don't want your child to be there, you don't want your child to be there, you don't want to have, the Ukrainians' mother, nobody wants to be in that war. But still you would have to go. And with that very complicated discussion, who is actually fighting? Did you want to add something to that discussion with your film? Do you know what I mean?
Every single man you see in that forest is a volunteer. It's very clear motivation. And also you also see the motivation of Russians. You occasionally meet them as prisoners of war. And they will constantly be asked, why are you here? And what we hear is, I don't know. So this motivation is also important to show, I think. There is this misconcept that Russia is creating very successfully within the within European and German media space that Ukrainian soldiers are forced to fight. Forced to fight by Ukrainian government, or forced to fight by Americans or whoever. But that's not the case. You see they're all volunteers. You see they want to be there because they don't want their home to be invaded. If you just break it down to a very simple, here's your home. That's where you live, and you have a neighbor. One day, just kicks in your door and shoots your wife and one of your children, and tries to burn down half of the house and tries to get the entire house. And then, what do? You fight back, or you call the police, and then police tells you, "Oh no, sorry." You should solve that peacefully. You say, okay, thank you very much. And then you keep fighting back. What do you do? And you ask constantly, please, can you leave? Can you leave? But then if you hear a shot back, then you also want to fight. I don't know, it's just so simple when you break it down to that, and it's just that. It's just that there's a violent neighbor that invaded your house, tries to kill your family, and no one is coming to help. It's just you. Someone occasionally throws a gun in your window and say, "Hey, here's help." That's fine. Thank you very much. And we see this. That's what amazed me so much when I was filming. I really wanted that to come across in a film. You see weapons those guys have? They're not modern, Western super weapons. They're old Kalashnikovs. They're using grenades that they took from Russian trench. Their armored vehicle are 30 years or 40 years old, and then they just get stuck in the mud or get broken down. And that's how they fight. That's what they have. And regardless of that, they still go forward. They're still not afraid. I think this is such a lesson. It's such a lesson of fighting your fear. When the entire world sits back and says, "Oh no, those nuclear weapons," or that there's hundreds of thousands of soldiers who can invade our country at the same time, and a lot of no one is willing to act on that, and then Ukrainians not run, they fight back. But again, how do you translate that into a film language?
Well, you did give a good answer.
That's the challenge.
But I would like to, coming from this complicated dilemma, I want to proceed to your personal situation, because in the Film Festival Cologne there was another film screened about the famous German war photographer Anja Niederinghaus, who was assassinated in 2014 while she was covering the Afghan elections. and I think she also worked. For AP. But what struck me when I thought about, did you meet her?
No, but we have good common friends, and I of course know her story very well.
But of course, the personal safety of war photographers or reporters is always a big question. But whilst being on the field, and you're all risking your life. But when Anja got home to Germany, she came home to a safe place. She had a home to go to. She had this farm and she had her family there, whereas you don't have that. Ukraine isn't a safe place, and you don't even live in Ukraine anymore. You live in Germany. We're not allowed to disclose where, because it is dangerous.
I still live in Ukraine, but part of my family is evacuated here. Yeah.
Sorry, but so you have like two living situations.
Ukraine, of course.
But you're threatened, even if you're not in the area. How can you tell us, or would you like to share any of that? And how do you cope with this? Because this seems even more terrible than you're just being a war photographer or a war journalist.
Do I have any choice?
No, obviously not. You didn't ask them to threaten you, but can you disclose any about this?
No.
Would you rather not talk about this?
You just accept that as your new reality, and then you live with it. Then you do your best to keep everyone safe, and to survive, and do something that it feels like you're doing your duty, which is never enough. But you try.
One does as much as one
can. Also, there's cinema. I'm very lucky. I'm a very lucky person because I'm in love with cinema. And I'm finally able to use that language to talk about something that is important for me and for my community. For the community I grew up with, and, I have constant connection to. And that's all very, very tragic, but on a personal level, with all the pain and trauma we're all going through, of course, I am very lucky because I have a purpose and I have something that I love, that I can apply to something that I think that is useful.
And is that, or might that be a reason why you choose to, if I understood right, that you stopped being like your full-time assignment with AP because you wanted to have more artistic freedom as a filmmaker, or does this not have anything to do with one another?
Just to clarify, I haven't. I'm just not actively reporting right now. But we did 2,000 meters with Andriivka with AP. I'm still working with them on that, promoting the film, and I'm just not actively shooting news stories, but I am still doing a lot of work. And I just like this. I find medium of cinema is more long-lasting, and something I personally want to do. And I find it right now, at this moment in time, even more impactful. I don't say more important than journalism, not in any way. Sometimes more impactful and with the bigger audiences than journalism. It's just that people who tried to kill journalism haven't gotten yet to documentary cinema.
Not yet.
They definitely will.
Yeah.
But they haven't done that yet. So again, it's just something that is very natural. It's just a natural transition.
Yeah, I was just glimpsing at the watch, and I'm trying to be fast now because we do want to open up for the thing. But I was just wondering, if I was right, you have been covering also the wars in Bergkarabakh, Afghanistan and Syria. And I was wondering, one thing in common of all of these conflicts seems to me is that Russia is somehow involved. Was this accidentally, or is this what was this? Did this come to you, or did you want to go there because Russia was involved?
No, that you slowly realize, of course, that everything is connected. All the conflicts are somehow connected in the world. They all feel equally tragic, of course. Every human life is equally important and is worth telling a story about. So when I realized that when I was in Ukraine for 2 years, since 2014, so invasion starts, the Crimea was taken over and annexed, and then Donbass was occupied by Russia and separatists. And I spent a couple of years thinking and filming only that. And then I remember I left Ukraine for a while. I was shooting migration crisis in Europe, Germany as well. And then I went to Iraq to sort of see the roots of that, Iraq and Syria, to see the roots of that crisis. And I suddenly realized that the world is so much bigger. And then what seemed to be the most important story in the world when I was in Ukraine actually was one of many, many, many tragedies that require attention. So I think that influenced me also in a way that I want the stories I tell to be universal. I don't want 2,000 meters to Andriivka to be just a story of Ukrainian platoon. I want it to be a story about the entire front line. I want it to be a story about just experience of a soldier, whether it's now or 100 years ago.
Anywhere, yeah.
Or anywhere in the world. So again, that's what makes cinema so beautiful, that you can not just get deeper in people's minds and thoughts and themes and ideas, but also you can work with it as a symbol, make it more universal, and talk about more. Because journalistic story always has to be very specific.
But I guess it does make, I assume, but maybe wrong, it does make a big, big difference for you whether you work in your motherland or whether you work in some other terrible crisis area. Or how do you cope with that also emotionally? Because you didn't quite answer, and I fully respect that you didn't answer how you mentally survived making this war, but I just think it must be a huge difference because you are so much more involved being a Ukrainian, I suppose, because it's your motherland.
It's interesting, the word motherland, I just thought in Ukrainian would be Batkivshina, which would be parents' land, not motherland.
Interesting. I like the word motherland or homeland. Homeland will go too.
Yeah. But I do like the parent land. It gives
that's very beautiful too.
Equal weight
Agreed.
to your parents. It's of course it's harder because it's the first war. Of course, you learn everything there. Also because it devastates your community, your personal connections, your friends are killed, your land when you grew up is destroyed. That land you see in Andriivka, that little forest, that's, those are the places, not that particular forest, but those are the places when you go to your grandmother in the countryside during a school vacation, school holiday, you run with your friends there, you play war when you're a kid, or when you go steal some corn when you're hungry, but there is this childhood connection to that place, to that land. So when you see it destroyed, when you see it mutilated, you want to speak about it. You have this motivation. The problem is that you don't know where to stop. And if you don't have a friend...
Excuse me, you don't know where to start?
You don't know where to stop.
To stop. To stop was the word.
If you don't have a friend or colleague or who can just grab you and pull you and say, hey, that's too far, that's too much, then you just never stop.
And what is your new project? Do you want to talk about it, or would you rather not share it yet?
It's a bit too early to talk about it. It's gonna be a next logical step. It's also a documentary, so it is a different perspective. What I'm trying to do is to make a body of documentary work about this war that is defining for my generation from different perspectives. So you see the perspective of civilians, you see a perspective of soldiers, you see a perspective of
yet another angle.
Say politicians or medics or whoever is there. But in a documentary film, you know, you film everything. You cast the net quite wide, and then you pick what you need to form a story. So you start wide, and then you narrow, more and more, and then you end up with the film.
I sure wish you all the best of luck for that project, but this sounds like an end, but it's not. I would like to open to the public. I know it's a bit late. I excuse myself for this, but are there any questions from you? And I think there's a mic probably coming to you.
Thank you very much for your insights. I just wanted to ask, when you started the project, you have to meet the soldiers first, say hello. So just wanted to know how this relationship developed and started.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Actually, in the very beginning, I thought this is going to be a film about the entire, coming back to what I just said, it was going to be a film about the entire counteroffensive. So I've met several different platoons on the front line, one of them being in the Kherson region, one in Zaporizhia, one in Donbass, and I started following each one of them. I spent a week there, a week there, week there. And I ended up focusing on just one of them. Those you see in 2,000 meters to Andriivka. But that wasn't clear from the very beginning. And then you start, of course, from just how it started for, I don't know if you've seen the film, but when we met Fedya, the protagonist, they came out from one of the battles and they were resting. And we came to them and then we said, you know, we met them, we just spoke, we didn't film anything. We looked at their body cam footage. We looked at the map where they are. And when I saw it on a map, I saw that little tiny forest, 2,000 meters. And I thought I saw Andriivka in the very end of it. And I looked at these guys and I thought, oh my God, they're interesting characters. That's when you start, like, make a decision, okay, let's spend more time with them. So you say, well, thank you very much. Let's have a coffee next time I'm here. And next time you go into battle, we're going to follow you either to the battle or we're going to stay in the headquarters to see what you're doing from drones. And then you just go on and on and on. And then you preferably have to leave with them when they come back from the battle. Then you're just staying with them in their compound. So you need to develop very close relationships with them. But then logistically, it's just logistically also very logical. You wouldn't want to be living somewhere 200 kilometers from there and keep coming for every battle. You want to just be there with them as much as you can.
Thank you.
For some platoons, it works better. For some platoons, it doesn't work. You just have to keep trying and trying. There's so much more filmed for this film than is on the screen. So much more. And unimaginably even more risky. So it's a bit even frustrating to know that for the biggest risks that we took, they never ended up on screen.
Did you save us from worst scenes? But I'm not supposed to...
Worst scenes. Actually, the worst possible scene could be a very boring scene. Is me taking a rubber boat with a team of soldiers to cross the river at night. Right? No shots fired. it's a secret mission, but then the boat breaks down and
Oh.
it just starts drifting towards Russian positions,
Oh,
and
gosh.
you're not in control.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
don't have anything to film.
Yeah. Stupid questions, forget it.
But then,
there was one question over there, I think.
Do you know what happened to the people who were in your movie after the movie? Do you have connections to them?
Yeah, again, I don't know who the audience didn't see the film, but we, after the main filming was finished, after the Andriivka was liberated, we followed up for almost a year with all of our protagonists. Some of them, unfortunately, died. So we went to their funerals, spoke to their families. When the film came out, their families came to the screening. Some of them saw their loved ones for the first time on screen. So we keep close contact with both soldiers who are still alive and their families, especially those who lost friends, our friends. Those connections don't break; they just stay.
There's another.
Yes, I have one question because I left the film after 1 hour because I couldn't stand the horror, and I'm myself filmmaker and film producer. I co-produce an Ukrainian film right now about soldiers on the front. And my question is...
Can I ask you which exactly was the moment when you left? Do you remember? What was that?
No, I don't. 1 hour. I don't.
Just interesting, like what exactly happened on screen?
No,
when
it
you
was
made a
not
decision?
exact the moment that was important for me, but I cried in the beginning and I was shocked so deeply. And my question is, did you think about that during during editing the film, that people maybe need a breeze between, that you have to create some time, some scenes? I heard that there was a cat in the end of the film.
There is a good moment.
I lost it. I'm sorry.
There is a moment to
to laugh. Something that special our German soft types of characters can stand the film for the whole time. I love the film in general. I'm very thankful for your film, for everything. I was. But I couldn't. I thought I have to go out to breathe.
Thank you. I think we approached it in a similar way as we did with 20 Days in Mariupol. 20 Days in Mariupol is in many ways harder film because you see children dying. And here there are men who made their choice to be there. So it is just mentally different. Also, we held back as much as possible on the graphic violence. Most of the tension and what you see on screen is not... There's no blood that's flying in the camera. There is screams and sound and just overall overwhelming action. And what's happening to these men when we find out that they died. But visually, let's say visually, we tried to keep the balance between being very realistic and let the audience to experience the war exactly how the soldiers do that. And for that reason, I am out there too. For that reason, this film is not built on sit-down interviews and drone footage and body cam footage. For that reason, I am walking in that forest as well. If not in the same dangerous situation, but at least in a similar one. I wouldn't be asking you, not you, but I wouldn't dare to ask the audience to go through that experience if I wasn't going through it. And I am through it all the way, holding hand, well, at least trying to hold hand of the audience to to go through that traumatic experience. And I think the worst thing we can do is to sanitize war, to make it look acceptable, to make it look easy. Because then you will be like, oh, okay, war is fine, you know, let's not stop it. And I don't want that to happen. I want it to be terrible. I want it to be true. So it is a balance between being cautious, not pushing sensitive people away, but also being true to what you do. That's why I wanted to ask you about the specific moment. Is there a moment where I went too far? But I think it's personal. So I appreciate that you told me that. And there is a moment. Thank you.
I know.
To be fair, cinematic thinking. Since we are at a film festival, I remember a conversation with our composer, and we were talking about. Oh no, that was Tony Gilroy. That was not Sam. Sorry, Sam is our composer, but Tony Gilroy is a good friend.
You need to come to the point fast, because we're running
I'm
out
coming
of
to the
time.
point. He said when the film was really overwhelming, I remember talking and showing it to the test audiences. Tony saw it too, and he said, Mstyslav, try to see the battles, the most difficult parts of the film, the battles that are filmed from the body cam, as songs in a musical. You won't place them one after another, because it becomes too heavy. You have to keep the pace of the editing. So you have this very loud moment, intense moment. Then you have a moment of quietness. And then you go up again. And then you go quiet again. So we try to do that.
Thank you. There is one urgent question, but I think, are you going to be around? Or are you leaving straight away?
I'm definitely not running away.
What is happening to your leg anyway? Do you want to talk about it, or
No.
you'd rather not? Okay. I hope it's getting fine. I'm sorry, you will have to ask outside, because I think, I'm not...
I can try one more question and then I'm just
Yeah,
outside
okay. One
now.
more question? Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I will be very quick. It's actually not a question, it's just a remark. I'm from Ukraine, but I live now in Germany, and I'm not so touched by war because I'm from central part as my family, but for the last 3 years it's always war in my mind, in my brain, and it's always this question why it's happening with us. And 2 weeks ago, I have an opportunity to see a previous film, 20 Days in Mariupol, on big screen, and it was experience to the bones. And I found an answer for myself, personally. And thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. I think we have to find an end somehow after the screening. There was also, thank you very much for your contribution, an Ukrainian lady, and she was holding up the flag, and I guess she was saying, long live Ukraine. I don't know what it was Ukraine. So it's actually impossible to find a good stop rather than thanking you, and maybe just, we're not making a minute now, but whilst you're leaving, just to think of all the people who died making this film, during this film, and all the time,
all the
day.
soldiers who shot this film wouldn't exist without soldiers shooting the battle scenes, and some of them are unfortunately died. So yeah, without them, this film wouldn't exist. This story wouldn't be there.
Yeah, so let's take some kind of a thought of a memory of those people with us, and I want to thank you very much for this film, for coming here.
Thank you.